Satanists. 1. A historical introduction to Satan and the beliefs associated with him. Many of us have certainly heard about the phenomenon of Satanists, but few know anything about this group due to the scarcity of information about it in Arabic, and its association with ideas and perceptions mixed with misunderstanding. Sometimes they are part of a giant Jewish conspiracy against the world, and sometimes they are Mossad agents. Sometimes they are Freemasons, masochists, watermelons, etc. But many of us really want to know the truth about this sect away from media fallacies. Who are they? What are their beliefs? What are their rituals? What do they look like? Do they offer human sacrifice? Do they have sex with the dead? What do their symbols and shapes mean? Why do they worship Satan, and what drives them to do so? Many questions run through the mind of each one of us about these people, and I have tried to answer them in a comprehensive and detailed manner in this humble article, explaining their history and sects, and their rituals, symbols, and some of the crimes associated with them, aiming for scientific accuracy and being as neutral as possible. There are many strange things and terrifying rituals that many people claim are linked to Satanists, and I took it upon myself to scrutinize and review them from their sources and distinguish the true from the fabricated so that readers have a clear idea about them. Everyone knows the devil, but who is the devil? Satan has many names, such as Satan or the ancient serpent. The word Satan is taken from the Hebrew word shatan, which means the one who opposes, and the word Satan is taken from the Greek word diabolos, which means the slanderer. The three heavenly religions agree that God created the angels before he created man, and gave them freedom of will and the opportunity to choose. So the angels chose to live in submission to God and in constant connection with him, obeying him, and trusting that in God's hands, happiness, holiness, and immortality. This is with the exception of one of them, namely Iblis, who disobeyed God's command and refused to prostrate to Adam when he was commanded to do so. The Holy Quran says, "And when we said to the angels, 'Prostrate to Adam,' so they prostrated, except for Iblis. He refused and was arrogant and was one of the disbelievers." Al-Baqarah, verse. And the Holy Book says, "How did you fall from heaven, O Zahra, daughter of the morning? How were you cut to the ground, O conqueror of nations? And you said in your heart, I will ascend to the heavens. I will exalt my throne above the stars of God. I will become like the Most High. But you were brought down to the bottom of the pit, to the bottom of the pit." Isaiah 14:12-15. From here we can say what Satan worship is. The term Satanism can be defined through two meanings, public and private, which is as follows: general meaning. It applies to every act of worship that is not directed towards God Almighty, for every disobedience to God is tantamount to obedience to Satan, and worshiping him. This has been stated in the heavenly books, as the Holy Quran says, "Did I not command you, O children of Adam, not to worship Satan? He is yours, a clear enemy," meaning, do not worship him by obeying him in disobeying God. And the Holy Bible says, "Give no place to the devil," Ephesians 4:27. The term Satanism is also applied in many literature to everything that is pagan, animal, and instinctive that man has known, starting with the pagan image of the force that rules the world, passing through baseness, sensuality, and animal sex that knows no controls or prohibitions. It is noted from the above that the general term for Satanism includes every rebellion against religion and virtue, and that which contradicts religion and morals, and tends toward idolatry, decadence, and satisfying instincts without control, is nothing but worship, closeness, and pleasing to Satan. Specific meaning. Satanism in its specific sense is the literal worship of Satan, and considering him to be a god who gives life and death, gives and prevents, punishes and rewards. Its purpose is to gain his satisfaction through performing rituals and worship, and offering sacrifices.
Satan worship throughout history. Satanists. 1. A historical introduction to Satan and the beliefs associated with him. an imagined image of Satan in an old European manuscript. Satan worship is not a modern thing as many think, but rather it is ancient, rooted deep in history. Satan worship has roots in most of the world's civilizations, and perhaps the oldest of them was among the pharaohs. As the books indicate, they had two gods. The first was the god of good, which is known as Osiris, and the other was the god of evil, known as Osiris. With Set, sometimes called Saturn, and both were sacred. Likewise, the Indians had more than one god, including the god of evil known as Shu. In Babylon and Assyria, legends mention that there were gods of light and gods of evil, and they were in constant conflict. There are several sects that worship Satan, including shamanism and Manichaeism, which believe in the power of Satan and worship him. They still have some followers in Central Asia who offer him sacrifices and offerings. Some researchers believe that the idea of worshiping Satan has its origins in the Gnostic religion that spread with the spread of Christianity, and that Gnosticism believes that the world is in fact hell, and that it is the world of evil and cannot be created by a good God. They consider that all the stories that talk about creation in the heavenly religions are false.
Satan worship throughout history was in the pharaonic civilization. The ancient religions in Egypt were distinguished by two important features, among their various advantages, which are 1. A clear distinction between good and evil, and the attribution of each to a different creator. 2. Belief in resurrection and reward, even if it is not what the heavenly laws brought. Due to the multiplicity and abundance of gods in the pharaonic civilization, their gods of evil were numerous, so we find that Aviv, whom they were drawing in the form of a twisted serpent, carrying in every fold of its body a passing tide, and lying in wait for the sun after sunset. So the sun god Ra is still at war with it, and with it, her black and red demons, until he defeats her before the morning and returns to the sunrise. He represents the gods of evil, Satan. Likewise, the Egyptians worshipped the gods Hatmur or Hathor, who were charged with punishing humans for abstaining from worshipping the god Ra. And she went on to pursue humans everywhere, stabbing and killing, and blood is shed, so they worshipped it to avoid its evil. But the most famous representative of evil or Satan in the civilization of the pharaohs is the evil god Set, who killed his brother Osiris, the god of goodness and love whom people loved. Set was considered the god of malicious spirits and the king of death and destruction. He was also responsible for all the evils that befall the land of Egypt and its people. Every Egyptian during the late dynasty was able to tell a story about how Set, the malicious god of drought, who withered the crops with his scorching breath, became angry. How did this malicious god become angry with Osiris the Nili? Because he increased the fertility of the land with his overflow, so he killed him and ruled with his mighty drought in the kingdom of Osiris. And although the pharaohs attributed to Set the responsibility of all calamities, crises, or even defeats and lack of wealth, they worshipped him, and that worship was mostly out of fear of him and protection from his evil, not love for him.
Ancient Indian civilization. Despite the large number of sects and religions that passed through India or settled there, and despite the excessive number of sects and gods there, belief in the duality of the universe and creation, which to them means the duality of gods, is almost a common denominator among most of those sects and religions, especially since the Indians have never been preceded by a people in their clear recognition that evil is balanced with good, so the Brahminical religion believes in a trinity of gods: Brahma, the creator, Vishnu, the god of goodness and virtue, and Shiva, the destroyer god of evil. Because Brahma has no A's for the worship of Shiva, it is one of the oldest, deepest, and ugliest elements from which the Indian religion is composed. Even though he is the god of cruelty and destruction, he wails, screams, accompanies the storm, and has the ability to control disease. He is a terrifying god, so he had to be appeased even by giving him a name. The word Shiva is a word used to reduce the ugliness of the god. The word Shiva literally means kind. The matter went beyond that, as Shiva became a center of worship, and even special groups appeared to worship him, such as the skull bearers, whose rituals of worship included drinking wine, eating meat, and having sex. Each of the gods had Shakti, meaning a wife or consort, and Kali was the wife of Shiva. She was also an object of worship among groups of Indians, although her image among the common people was a black ghost with an open mouth and a hanging tongue, decorated with snakes and dancing. On a dead body, with dead men's earrings, her necklace a series of skulls, her face and breasts stained with blood, and from her 4 hands, 2 hands holding a sword and an amputated head. Her worship was also characterized by brutal rituals, often including human sacrifice. In fact, the Kanakeen group continued for more than 6 centuries to worship the god Kali by strangling their victims. What is interesting to note is that some of these rituals are still practiced by some groups of Satanists to this day, such as group sex rituals, animal sacrifice, dancing on the corpses of the dead, adorning themselves with skull chains and earrings, and smearing the bodies with blood. Persian civilization. The Persian civilization was the fertile soil for dualism, which is the belief in 2 gods, the god of good and the god of evil. This becomes clear if we know that the largest religions of Persia believed in dualism. Zoroastrianism, which was founded by Zoroastra, son of Ursheb, is basically based on the fact that the world is ruled by 2 forces. 2 opposites, they are light and darkness, the god of light. Ahura Mazda is the god of goodness who cannot be responsible for evil, and the god of evil Ahriman is responsible for creating all evils and misfortunes. Rather, they make the history of the world nothing but a history of the struggle between God and Satan, and they divided. This history is divided into 4 periods, each extending 3,000 years. The first and second periods were to prepare the forces, and the third stage was the stage of engagement in the conflict. In the final period, Satan will be defeated in the end. At the beginning of creation, Satan penetrated the fortifications of the heavens and attacked the first man and the first animal by illness and death. Likewise also the Manichaean religion, which was founded by Mani bin Fatik, who believed in dualism, and considered the world to be 2 separate universes, one of which was light, and the other was darkness, and that Satan came from the land of darkness and was formed from it, then became corrupted and deserved to descend to the bottom, but he wanted to rise, so he knew about it. The king of light, so he deceived to defeat him. Then Mazdak followed them and founded Mazdakism, which says there are 2 universes and 2 origins as well, which are light and darkness. Ancient Middle Eastern civilizations. Many civilizations lived on the land of the Middle East, including the Sumerian civilization in Mesopotamia, whose gods included Asag, who represented evil or Satan. He represents the demon of epidemics and diseases, and he is from the underworld, and his name means the one who struck the arm. The Sumerians worshipped him to protect him from his evil. There was also in the Sumerian religion another god who represented the image of the evil devil, Adad or Hadad, who was also a god of the Assyrians. He was the god of the atmosphere who rode the storm while thundering like a bull, holding in his hand the triple lightning fork. He was the object of reverence and veneration, despite that he was bringing ruin and destruction among the ancient Arabs. As for the Arabian Peninsula, the Arabs of pre-Islamic times believed in evil higher powers that affected man and the universe, so astrology and divination were a popular matter among them. The Quran says about that, and they have appointed partners for God among the jinn. As some of the Arab polytheists worship the jinn, and they do not know who the jinn are, but they are the illusions of paganism, and the various pagans in various pre-Islamic times knew that there were evil beings, similar to the idea of devils, and they feared these beings, whether they were evil spirits or evil entities, and they offered sacrifices to them to avoid their evil. Then they worshipped them. The ancient Christian world. The ancient Christian world witnessed the emergence of many sects that were considered heretical, and that, under the influence of paganism, claimed that there were 2 gods, a god of good and a god of evil. In the 2nd century AD, many people who said this appeared, perhaps the most famous of whom were Basilides, Valentinus, and Marcion. Marcion had a group called Marcionism. They believe in two gods and two ancient origins, and the sects that sanctify Satan continued to appear in Christian society, until Europe became a nest for those sects, including shamanism, Orphism, Bogomalia, and Alpine, all of which are sects and groups that believe in one doctrine, despite their different names, and their doctrine is the sanctification of Satan that they see. In him is the rebel, the revolutionary, and the supporter of slaves. However, the most famous sects that worshipped Satan in Christian society were the Catharians, and the name is derived from a Greek word meaning the pure. Their doctrine was based on the belief that there is a God of good and a God of evil, and that Satan is the one who created the visible world, and that all matter is evil, and they deny Christian worship rituals, mock indulgences, and call churches thieves' nests, and the priests, in their opinion, are traitors, liars, and hypocrites. Their influence became strong in many European countries, especially France, and their followers increased, until Innocent III came to the papacy and ordered their suppression, and they were subjected to genocide that ended their existence. But their ideas did not end, as sects and groups worshipping Satan continued to appear in Europe. In the year 1335 AD, 63 men and women were taken to the Inquisition in Toulouse, and one of them said, "God is the king of heaven and Satan is the king of the earth, and they are two equal, eternal rivals fighting for victory and defeat. And Satan is unique in his clear victory in the present era." When the plague spread in Europe and killed a third of its population in the 14th century AD, a large number abandoned Christianity and worshipped Satan, claiming that he had usurped the kingdom of heaven. Then several groups appeared that worshipped Satan, and they killed children and poisoned water wells, such as the Pink Cross Society, the Jachin Society, the Bavarian Flame, the French Flame, and the Asian Brotherhood. The ancient Islamic world. The prosperity of the Islamic State in the Abbasid era was marked by the beginning of the emergence of some groups that sanctified Satan and sometimes worshipped him, as a result of the mixing of races and religions in Baghdad. Influences from ancient paganism and Greek philosophy seeped in to reveal some movements, such as Mukana and Kuramiya, during the time of Caliph Ubay, Jafar al-Mansur, who believes in these things. Some personalities have also emerged who give Satan a lofty status and defend him, saying that he is a monotheistic worshipper who refused to prostrate to anyone other than God and succeeded in being tested. Perhaps the first to say that, and al-Hallaj called for him, was that he declared that Satan did not prostrate to Adam because of his excessive love for God and because he is the master of the monotheists. Where it was stated in al-Tawasin that he said, "There was no one among the inhabitants of heaven like Iblis. As the eye was clouded over him, he abandoned observations in secret and worshipped the Almighty in abstraction. So he said to him, 'Prostrate.' He said, 'Nothing else.' He said to him, 'It is up to you, my curse.' He said, 'There is no harm in me. I have no path to anyone other than you, and I am a lover and a submissive.' Al-Hallaj went further than that, as he insisted that Satan did not commit a crime by refusing to prostrate and rebel against God's command. As he says, 'And by right, I did not make a mistake in planning, nor did I repeat the estimation, nor did I care to change the representation, nor do I have power over these decrees. He tortured me with his fire forever and ever. I will not prostrate to anyone, nor will I humiliate a person or a body.'" It is worth noting that al-Hallaj was punished for his words by having his hands and feet cut off, his tongue cut out, his eyes gouged out, and he was crucified at the gates of Baghdad until he died.